Now being recorded.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sage Act hosted Deep Dive Part 2 training webcast. Appreciate everybody making the time to join. My name is Alex Taylor. I am the Senior Manager, Sage Act Channel Distribution. And before we get going, a few housekeeping items. The number of attendees will keep all lines muted. But don't be shy. I know you're not. Please submit all your questions via chat. We will be answering the questions during the webinar, and then also we'll take time. We have 2 breaks for questions that we'll answer as well, and of course at the end. So feel free to ask questions during the webinar. It is being recorded, and we'll publish the recording, the PowerPoint, and all the chat questions next week, and they'll be available on the community site as well as the partner portal. So with that, let's dive right in. First of all, let's recap our previous Sage Act hosted webinar. I know it's been a few weeks, so what Sage Act hosted is a 1-year customer contract for Sage for delivery of services. It is a minimum of 3 users or 3 customers. It includes Act Premium for web and Sage Act Premium mobile clients. That's the mobile client that gives your customers access to Act on an iPhone and an iPad, a Droid, a BlackBerry, via HTML5, and of course hosted Act Sage Premium database. It is the latest version of Act, so for the purpose of this webinar, that is Sage Act Premium for Web 2012. Users have the option to access their Sage Act database when they are offline with a dual access setup, in essence an offline sync database if they wish. The software licensing and hosted services bundled together for a monthly per user fee. In other words, there's no upfront software fees and no in-house networking cost. iStructure Technologies provides the network and technical infrastructure on the back end. Speaking of which, and we'll hear more from iStructure later on in the webinar, they are, again, the back-end provider of all network and technical infrastructure that operates the Sage Act hosted service. They are an Act certified consultant, so you have confidence in their ability as far as their technical expertise. And then Sage, we have been pilot testing the hosted iStructure technology over the last few years. So this is something we didn't just kind of whip up. It's been tested, and in fact, it's been piloted, being sold directly over the last 7 months with our direct sales team with superb results. Recapping from our previous webinar, pricing and term commitment. Pricing is $50 per user per month, volume discounts apply, which includes the Sage Act software licensing, the latest version of Sage Act Premium. It includes a web access database setup. It includes unlimited Sage Act hosted customer support, and the support hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As mentioned previously, the customer has the ability to set up an offline client setup. There's a one-time fee of $119 for each offline client being set up. It is the same price for a new user versus an upgrade user. And so unlike our on-premise software where upgrading customers get a different price point, for hosted it's one price whether new or upgrading. However, there are discounts at different tier levels. So for 3 or more, and then at the higher number of users, there is a bit of a discount per month. The contract is a 1-year contract, so they sign a 1-year contract. They can pay quarterly. Monthly billing is available, but at this point it's generally quarterly. And the customer will experience an early termination fee of a 2-month service fee from the effective date of termination. But to be fair, we have yet to have anybody terminate early during our current pilot. Okay, let's pause for some licensing FAQs. One of the questions we've got previously is, does a customer need to purchase Sage Act licenses with Act hosted? And the answer is no. They can go right to the cloud right away. Does the customer need to purchase Sage Act licenses with Sage Act hosted offline client? The answer is no. However, Act software and serial numbers will be provided to offline client users. Does the customer own Sage Act licenses if they discontinue the services, again, given that they didn't have an existing Act license? The answer there is no. Will Sage Act Hosted provide service to customers that want to own their licenses and still have their Sage Act database hosted? And the answer is no on that. Most importantly, if a customer leaves, unlike other competing solutions, can they take their database with them? Absolutely yes. That's important for you to know. So all the notes and histories and all the other additional customizations, if they leave Sage Act Hosting, they get to take their database with them. Okay, let's get to my personal favorite part of commission or compensation. So now that I have your attention, all ACCs reselling Sage Act Hosted receive a 20% commission for every paying Sage Act and customer. Get paid for the entire year up front. I'll say that one more time. You get paid for the entire year, all 12 months, up front in month one. But wait, there's more. You get tier credit, co-op credit, and you instantly become the reseller of record. So one more time. ACCs receive a 20% flat commission fee for every Sage Act hosted end customer. You receive tier credit for the entire amount, co-op accrual credit, and you become the reseller of record, ROR, every Sage Act hosted customer. And I have some more exciting things later on. In year two, oh yeah, we threw that in there as well. Year two, you get paid again. So in the 13th month, you get your commission again, 20%, more tier credit, more co-op credit, and you maintain your reseller of record status. In fact, there's nothing you do not get from a compensation standpoint by selling Sage Act Hosted. We've done this purposely to heavily incentivize you to continue to sell this. In fact, moreover, there's no declining commissions. Sometimes when you have offerings like year one, they pay you a certain amount, but year two is the same commission amount, and even beyond year three, year four, you still receive the commissions, tier, and co-op. So an example here, as 3 users is the minimum, 50 users per, that's 150. 3 users times 12 is $1,800. That's 3 users for a year. The commission there is $360. As long as the customer stays on Sage Act Hosted, you receive commissions. So year 2, you're not cut out. Year 3, nor do your commissions decline in scale. Okay, let's pause here. There's probably some questions on there. What about cancellation? Is there a chargeback? Yes. So as mentioned previously, if the person does not complete their 1-year contract, there's a 2-month chargeback that Sage charges them as far as the cancellation fee. Are the commission rates the same year over year? Absolutely yes. You get paid the same amount in year 2 and beyond year 3, year 4, as you do in year 1, provided the end customer is not reducing the number of users. In fact, if they add users, by the way, you'll get additional commission. So to confirm, so there's no uncertainty, because this is my favorite part, as you can tell. CCs get paid commission, accrue co-op, and the total amount of hosting deals goes toward their tier. Absolutely yes. Oh, and you become the resale of record as well. We'll talk more about, I think, an also interesting component is services. Many of you are wondering, that's great, Alex, but do I get to bill on services? And yes, you do. A question related to this is that if a client cancels, we talked about the chargeback to them, is there a chargeback to the ACC? And yes, so if a client cancels Sage, so there's additional commission fee that we will charge back, we will charge you back the CC as well. However, we have yet to have a single cancellation, so that is very, very unlikely. And questions coming up here in chat, we will further discuss in upcoming slides here the ability to you to charge and bill for your services related to Sage Act hosting. Okay, how do you engage? Again, at a very high level. So now that I've got your attention, here's how it works. You as the ACC quote and proposes the Sage Act hosted to your end customer. Our Sage Act account executives can help you. Many, as you know, many of you have been working with them already. They've been selling this directly now for about 7 months with fantastic results. So reach out to your Act account executive. You can reach out to me. We can help you as well. From there, the end customer places the order directly with Sage. A little bit different. Historically, when an ACC sells an on-premise software solution, usually use your credit card or put it on your terms. For hosted customers, they pay Sage directly. It's actually think about it, because you still get all the goodies, the margin tier, co-op, resale record, but it doesn't tie up your cash, doesn't tie up your credit card or your credit line. Once that happens, you as the ACC receive the commission for the entire 12 months of service in month 1. It may be month 2, depending on when they buy, but literally the next, as soon as we can credit your account or send you a check, you'll get paid on that. And again, you get it for the entire year. You, as the ACC, retain contact with the Sage Act hosted customer. It includes all services and customization, which is key. I know many of you are wondering about. Okay, let's pause here for questions. We've got questions here. I'm looking at the chat here. Will we be discussing services that the ACC will be providing to their customers? Yep, that's coming up in the next few slides. Question here, will the ACC get to host their own database at no reduced cost that we know how it works and how to demo it? No, for Sage, Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, is it the database is hosted by iStructure, and there's not a concurrent hosting of the database by the ACC. Question here on volume prices at a very high level. It's kind of like we have now, right? When you sell more app licenses, the price goes down a bit. So 1 to 5, this is on-premise, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, etc. The hosting pricing follows something similar, and we'll talk about that a bit later during the onboarding call. But just for the point of this webinar is that, yes, the more licenses you sell, the customer gets a bit of a discount as far as that. Question here is that what is the actual number gets credited for co-op? If Sage collects $50 per month per user, how much that goes to our co-op? Actually, the entire net amount, so it's not actually monthly, the entire, so I think the example we had was like $1,800, or the, kind of like you receive now. So if you sell an on-premise software solution, the net amount, the entire deal, not just your commission margin, but the net amount gets toward your co-op. It is similar with hosted. So the net amount, so I think the example we had was $1,800 or something similar, gets credited toward not only your co-op, but also your tier. Okay, keep the good questions coming. We've got one more here. Will the ACC get to host their data at iStructure? So we'll talk more about that in the next few slides, but the end customer's database, yes, is hosted at iStructure when you sell this.
Okay, I think he's asking, will we host the ACC's actual business database? And currently we do not have a program where, iStructure at no charge will host these databases. I've seen this question come up a couple times. That's not to say that we would consider one in the future. But as far as for demo purposes, you will be provided a link to offer your customers, as well as yourself, to trial the service to see how it works online. But, to answer your question, that's not to say we won't have an ACC database hosted program in the future, but as of right now, we do not.
All right, Alicia, with that, why don't I turn it over to you? Perfect timing. I'd like to introduce you all to Alicia Hardy, the president of iStructure Technologies.
Thanks, Alex. Again, my name is Alicia Hardy. I'm with and manage iStructure Technologies. As Alex mentioned, we manage the network infrastructure that supports the Sage Act hosted services. I appreciate you joining the call, and we sincerely look forward to working with all of you to provide these ongoing services to our customers here. Alex briefly touched on what the engagement entails, and what I'd like to cover here are at least high level what are a couple of the general rules of our engagement between the ACC, Sage, and iStructure. The ACC, first bullet point here, the ACC will follow the Sage Act hosted standardized sales process. We will be providing that for you to let you know what the process is and provide you access to our online quoting and ordering tools to automate the sales process. So, yourself, Sage, and iStructure are all on the same page when we are dealing with these customers, and it creates an efficient way for us to communicate effectively with each other. And those will be demonstrated for you on the onboarding call, and Alex will be briefly reviewing those later on in in this seminar here. Next, this is a really important bullet point here, is the ACC selection of their engagement type. The ACC will select their type of engagement at the time a quote is prepared or at the time the order is processed. And there are two engagement types, general engagement types anyway. One where the ACC is engaged fully for professional services with the hosted customer. And what this means is the ACC is responsible to provide all professional services outside of the core hosted services that iStructure provides. These will include database customization, database conversion, import, offline client setup, end user training, any other type of integration or services that you provide to your current, on-premise customers can be provided to your ACT-hosted customers. Again, with an ACC engaged customer type, the ACC will be providing all professional services, and iStructure will be limited to providing the core hosted services for the hosted solution. The second option you have is to elect a Sage full service engagement type, and this is where iStructure acts as your backup. If you don't want to engage with your customers on a professional service level, you can defer that to iStructure for us to be responsible for providing those professional services on an on-request basis from your customers. If you elect to go with a Sage full service engagement type, you still collect full commission on the Sage ACT-hosted services and remain the reseller of record. So depending on how you want to work with your customers, you have two options. And then also by electing these engagement types, it allows us to better understand when iStructure should be servicing a customer to keep to maintain a high level of customer service, and then when those customers should be deferred to the back to the ACC. As far as technical support, I think this is probably a good time to talk about what the technical support process is. Sage ACT-hosted customers, they are offered unlimited ACT technical support to the Sage support desk, Sage ACT-hosted support desk. They have the option to call in to the Sage desk. If a ticket needs to be escalated because it's a server-related issue, it will be escalated to iStructure, and we tend to any of those tickets. If a customer contacts us, an ACC customer contacts us directly, if they're an ACC engaged customer and the service request falls outside of our hosted service agreement, we will defer those customers, always defer those customers back to the ACC for service. And, of course, we will discuss, these two engagement types in more detail during our onboarding call. I'm sure, depending on how you operate your business, each of you will have specific questions, and, we're flexible, and I look forward to answering those questions for you. Okay, next here, what are the iStructure core hosted service? What is that? Well, iStructure will install and create the Sage ACT hosted database that will be installed on the central server. If the customer is starting fresh and they are a clean database, we will create the database. If the customer has an existing ACT database, or you are customizing a database and importing data from an existing other data source, you will prepare that ACT database, provide us with a complete backup that's uploaded to our secure FTP site, and then we will install that database on the central server for the customer to access. iStructure will create and add new users based on specific ACT user information provided to us at the time of setup. So, we'll add new users, we'll set, basic security rights, and then we'll also make change users their specific needs change or their users change, we're happy to make those changes. The third core hosted service is the creation of remote databases for offline client users. iStructure will create those remote databases. From the publisher database. What you can expect as far as deliverables from iStructure and what your customers can expect is within 24 business hours of receiving the completed customer information, DataLogic will set up their database, or iStructure will set up their database and provide the customer with a web link to access their Sage-hosted database. iStructure will also provide the customer with a web link to download the Sage Act software and serial number for offline client users, as well as the offline client's remote database. If the ACC provides or elects to have a Sage full service engagement, iStructure Technologies will provide professional services to these customers on request. Okay, and a little bit about our network. Customers, we'll ask, basic questions about how our network is set up. You can, be comfortable providing, these statistics regarding our network services. First of all, we offer 99.9% uptime. I mean, our servers are running, all the time. They are monitored 24/7. There is always somebody watching those and proactively monitoring those servers. Databases are backed up nightly, and iStructure Technologies maintains 14 days of backup. So if, customers delete data inadvertently and they need to restore it from a previous database, we can go ahead and recoup that data for them on request. Regarding data security, we run a Tier 4 data center, and then all servers have SSL security certificate. The data center is SAS 70 compliant, and technically we also meet the requirements of HIPAA HIPAA compliance. Once, as I mentioned before, once we receive completed ACT user information, the Sage ACT hosted database will be available to your customers within 24 business hours. That's typically within one business day from the time, as I mentioned, iStructure Technologies receives completed ACT user information. Okay. Switching gears here a little bit, we thought it would be helpful to go through what the Sage Act hosted user restrictions are regarding various functions of their database. I'd like to mention that setting customer expectations is very important to keeping your customers happy and not having a customer deactivate their account because they weren't clear as to what their restrictions were. So I'd like to go through these briefly. Many of you probably already know this, but I'd just like to go through them here quickly for you. One of the restrictions is that Sage Act add-ons are not accessible through Act Premium for Web. So web users cannot use add-on applications. Those are available and can be used with the offline client, such as SwiftPage and other add-on applications. Web users are restricted from importing data directly into the ACT database. Many customers will assume that they can import into the ACT for Web database and are disappointed when they find out that they can't. So that's something that needs to be clarified on the front end, that they cannot, that they will, if they do need to import data on a routine basis, they will be required to have an offline client database. An offline client database is also required to modify user security access, to set limited access, and to customize reports. Web users can run reports. However, to customize reports and templates, I should add here, that will require an offline client database. And the creation of local data backups, web users cannot create a backup, but offline client users can create backup on their own. There are two functions that are restricted for both users, web users and offline client users, and those are one, database customization, and the second, adding new users. To get a little bit more specific with database customization, technically users are restricted from defining fields because those need to be defined in the publisher database that is hosted on the central server. However, offline client users can add those fields to the layout. So, I mean, depending on how you want to work with different customers, iStructure will need to define fields for any field adds after the database goes live. However, we can add fields, or the client can add the field, can actually add the fields to their data structure with the offline client. But again, we can talk about this in more detail during our onboarding call, but in general, that's the explanation there. And then adding new users. iStructure needs to add all new users. So new user requests will just come directly to iStructure from either you or from the customer. Okay, and to reiterate again, here's some common assumptions that the Sage Act hosted customers make about the functionality they have with the Act for Web, with their Act for Web database. One, whether the customer specifically asks about these functions or not, they typically assume that they can import data. They also assume that they can customize reports. Anyone that's an admin user assumes that they can modify user security rights and add fields and customize their data structure. Please, as a customer satisfaction best practice, please incorporate the explanation of the user restrictions into your sales discussion. Discussions go much better when you at least present these limitations to the customer on the front end. They understand what they are, they're willing to work with you, and you've got a happy customer. Once they get set up and they find out that they cannot perform these functions, there's a level of frustration there that could have been avoided on the front end if these common assumptions were proactively addressed. So again, I encourage you to address these limitations during your sales discussion. Okay, I'm going to go back to Alex here. I see a lot of questions. We're going to answer all these questions at the end here, but I'm going to let Alex.
Yeah, thank you, Alicia. I appreciate it. And yeah, there's been a fantastic amount of technical questions, so feel free to address those via chat. Thank you. I love questions because that means CCs are actually really. The demand so far has been tremendous. So I'm going to kind of go back into the sales role here for a bit as far as the sales process. So at a high level, you kind of understand what we're talking about here. You understand the commission and what's in it for you. So here's how it works. So first and foremost, if you have somebody who's interested in hosting or getting quoted, you will create the quote in the iStructure quoting system. And upcoming, I've got some screenshots to show you what it looks like. It's an online quoting tool. Once that's done, it gets sent to the end customer. The customer then accepts the quote and agrees to the service terms using the orange Accept Quote button located directly on the quote. From there, the Sage Order Desk approves the order as they do now. The customer or you complete the online Sage Act user information form and uploads the existing database into the iStructure Technology server. iStructure Technologies will then complete the setup within 24 business hours, or in essence 1 business day, of receipt of the complete customer user information. Here's an example of a screenshot or a quote screenshot. So this is something that you've got a customer, you're looking to quote them. These are the default fields. As you can see, you will have the ability, if you'd like, you don't have to, but you can, to record the ACT sales rep, the ACT account executive. If they passed you a lead, certainly I think they'd appreciate being noted on there. You'll also have the ability to do your own custom information on there. And you'll see on the next few slides saying to the end customer, hey, Bob, thanks so much. Here is your quote. I'll follow up with you next week and talk more about that. Here is an example or a screenshot of the actual quoting tool. And as I saw this earlier, I'm like, we should, Sage should have something like this, to be honest with you. Our quoting tool could use some work, but it's great. It's very intuitive. The fields auto-populate. All you need to do is enter the number of users, enter the number of offline client users, enter the number if converting an existing Sage ACT database. And I'll stay on the screen for a second here. Very simple. It adds up for you as well. And in fact, the step 3 during your onboarding call with Alicia, she'll walk through and do a quote with you, and you have your own login and ID and password, so you can quote customers whenever you like. But it's a simple tool. If our internal ACT sales reps can use this effectively, as they've been doing for the last 7 months, trust me, ACT certified consultants will have no trouble at all. Here's another screenshot as far as quoting systems. There's a first name, last name. Again, you have the ability to put in some comments in there to the end customer, the customer information, their address, where they're located. If they have a customer number, you can then preview the quote or send it directly out as is. And speaking of which, this is a screenshot of an example of a quote. And notice, the first thing up there is you have the ability to co-brand it. Your name can be listed there. We've got kind of all ACT consulting, Joe ACC. But this will be your name, your physical contact information, your email address, and then below is the end customer information. So this won't have a Sage thing on it. It won't have iStructure. This is from you to them. You can see the orange accept quote button on there we talked about. And again, one point just to remind you is that the end customer will be paying Sage directly for this. So you don't have to worry about using your credit card, tying up your credit line. The customer pays direct Sage for this, and then we then reimburse you immediately for the year of service with your commission, your tier, your margin, your co-op, and reseller of record. And you'll notice there at the text section, that is what you would type in. So Dear Eric is an example, but that's what you're typing in, and it could be anything you want. So thanks so much for our chat today. Here's the quote we talked about. I'll follow up with you, next Tuesday. Have a great weekend or something like that. And then you'll see there directly below it, and that is where the fields where you had auto-populated. You type those in. And again, during an onboarding call, Alicia will go through with you. We'll do a sample quote so you're comfortable with this tool and know how to use it. Driving awareness. So we've been piloting this internally for about 7 months now, but to be honest, we haven't done much marketing, meaning there's been no email blast with hosting, no post. It wasn't really listed onto the ACT website until a month or two ago. That's all about to change. Sage ACT premium campaigns will include mentions of Sage ACT hosted moving forward. The call to action will be to call Sage. From there, though, the AEs or ACT account executives will have the ability to route leads to ACCs. They can close them directly, as they can out. Still a blended sales model. But that's why I encourage you, work closely with your ACT account executive. They'll have the ability to engage with you and to pass you hosting leads. Sage ACT Hosted will also be included on the home page of ACT.com and also have its own product page. Once you complete all 3 steps, which we'll talk about in the next few slides, you will be given a price list, collateral, email signature graphics, success story, internal FAQs. From there, I recommend you can do your own SwiftPage email campaign to get the word out to let your customers know that we have a cloud offering that they can get through you. Kind of on that point is that, let me tell you some kind of a metric here, is that we've been offering this internally now for about 7 months with very little extra marketing, muscle. The demand has been so phenomenal, we have already achieved our entire year's sales goals just direct so far. So we've already hit what we thought we'd sell for a year, mid-year, and the rest is upside. website. And that's just being sold direct. That is just with the reps just talking about it. So the demand has been tremendous. So I encourage you, it's kind of like, the time is right. ACT is in the cloud. We're hosted. Get the word out. And the purpose of this is that when we first offered this internally, a few ACCs pinged me and said, hey, Alex, why can't we sell this? And to be honest with you, we just wanted to make sure everything was right. To quote, as I date or age myself here, we will sell no wine before it's time. If you remember, who remembers that commercial? Anybody? The point there is we wanted to make sure we've been building this and working this for the last 3 years. We've been piloting it internally for the last 7 months, and now it is your turn to sell it, and it's just another offering you have. So I encourage you, the time is right, the demand is there, it's been fantastic, and we will have a huge marketing air cover effort to make your sales efforts successful. Okay, so I've got your attention here. You're probably wondering, all right, Alex, what do I need to do next? Okay, this is important. So first and foremost, if you're on this webinar, you've attended step 1, and thank you for that, which is the first hosted webcast we did a few weeks ago. You understand the components of the offering. Now step 2, which you're doing right now, attend the Sage Act hosted deep dive training webcast. Thank you. Now what needs to happen, you need to pass a light certification exam. There's the website. You need to log on and register for the course and assessment. My next slide, don't worry though, this isn't some incredibly granular like the recertification test where you need to study, for days ahead of time. It is a just high level. That's what, hence the term light certification. We just want to make sure you understand the components of the offering, how to position it, how to quote it. But to be clear, you must pass the certification exam in order to move on to step 3. Step 3 includes is Alicia will do a one-on-one onboarding call with each ACC interested in selling Sage Act hosted. She'll go through the specifics, answer any specific questions you may have, anything that's unique to you. She'll confirm, she'll give you access to the toolkit, and then at that point you will receive authorization to resell Sage Act hosted. To be clear, unless you complete all 3 steps, you will not be allowed to resell Sage Act hosted. Now, a bit more about what certification means to you. I think when I tell CCs it's time to recertify, everybody cringes, at least based on our recent recertification efforts. And good thing nobody waits till the last minute. All right, so what we mean by here, there's no certification fee associated. The light certification exam, it's a multiple choice test, covers a high-level overview of the Sage Act hosted offering. This can only be resold by those that are certified ACCs, so it currently is not offered to any other channels except the direct team. Once certified, you may continue on to step 3, which is your onboarding call with iStructure Technologies. So Alicia will get a list of those of you that are certifying, and then she'll begin to reach out to you to create onboarding calls that work for both your schedules. Once that's done and you're good to go, you will have the ability to begin selling, marketing, advertise Sage Act hosted. Speaking of advertising, there will not be a special program logo like Act Premium for Web, like there were years ago, if you recall that, nor will there be a Sage Act hosted partner listing on ACT.com. In deference to our existing listings, including your ACC listing, your ACT Premier Training listing, as well as the HPP listing, there will be no special designation for Sage Act hosted partners, but you will have the ability to resell and certainly market this offering. Okay, well, let's pause for questions here. I know Alicia's been answering those that are more technical of nature, and I will start looking at those that are more sales in nature. I've got here a question on what was the sales goal. I can't, it's a confidential revenue metric, but it was pretty ambitious for something we've never offered directly, and we've already smashed through that goal, and the monthly revenue is that we're doing currently is tremendous. We're not talking small dollar amount here, folks. It's significant, I'll leave it at that. And I expect, I've made a bet internally that the ACCs will match and exceed what we're currently selling directly because it's such a kind of compelling offering. I've got a question. Are ACCs subject to sales goals? No, obviously, this is optional, right? Think of this offering as another arrow in your quiver, of this offering, it doesn't disrupt your existing on-premise sales, your existing on-premise consulting. It's just something new to offer. It's cloud-based, it's hosted, you still get your commission, your tier, your co-op, your resale of record, you get year 2, year 3, it's additional benefits. We talked about this during our first webinar, but just to recap, this is from Forbes. 1/3 of all IT budgets are now moving or have been dedicated to the cloud. It's not just for CRM, it's everything. Also, when I was attending an Ingram Micro symposium, Ingram Micro is the world's largest distributor, $30 billion in revenue, a billion as in B. And I was there, this is the CEO of Ingram, he said, the biggest movement thing in technology, these are people buying stuff, this isn't an analyst, these are people actually buying, are cloud-based offerings, tablet, and mobility. I'll say it one more time. The biggest growth in technology right now are cloud, tablet, and mobility. You think back here, I know many ACCs are we're similar generations. This whole cloud thing has been around for a while. It used to be called ASP, Application Service Providers, in the late 90s, if you remember that. Then it was called SaaS, Software as a Service, and now they've called it cloud. It's finally exploding. I guess that's the way to put it, is that looking at all the revenue based on what we've seen, based on their metrics, per Ingram Micro, it's now finally gaining traction. And so the timing here is perfect. ACT has a fantastic mobile story with ACT Premium Mobile, HTML5 compatibility. In fact, we're ahead of the curve. You now have a cloud offering. You can get services from this offering. So I like to tell ACCs, come with us. We've tested this. We've vetted it. We've piloted. Come on in. The water's fine. This is an additional offering that will not disrupt your existing sales portfolio as your internal channel advocate. This is just my goal is to make money for you reselling Sage ACT solutions as well as services. The demand, everything we've seen, we are ready to go. And so I encourage you, take the next step. And I know there's a few hoops here, but the time is right. There's no additional kind of disruptions that we can see as technology. Cloud, tablet, mobility, and here's the last part that's pretty cool. Many customers are struggling for consulting guidance related to their cloud strategy. As I talked about earlier, 1/3 of all IT budgets have now been dedicated to cloud solutions. You, as the ACC offering a hosted solution, can then, using ACT as the initial engagement point, can embed yourself to this client to be their on-site cloud consulting expert. Customers are desperate for consulting wisdom in this area. You get apps in the cloud, they go, great, thank you for your help. I need some help with, I'm looking at moving stores to the cloud. Can you recommend? Can you help me? And you can say, absolutely, I can help you. Here's what I bill an hour. So that's the last part, is that use this as your way to become their on-site cloud expert and walk them through, much like we're walking you through, the different strategies and approaches they can use to take other technologies to the cloud. And, of course, you can make money on this with your existing services. So that's like the extra credit step that I recommend you take, using this as a catalyst to generate additional consulting and services revenue through you. I'm going to go back here. As far as registration, I know many of you may be like, how do I register? Again, there's already got some questions on there. Is that, again, the certification exam, there's the website. It's on SageU. Go ahead and register for that. You need to register and set up, and then the hosted class or the test becomes available to you. And I'll leave it up here for a few minutes. Okay, and we'll keep on answering questions here. Alicia, certainly if there's any technical questions that you're actually answering them fast and fiercely via chat. I'll take a question here if you don't mind. The question, do all ACCs in an organization have to complete steps 2 and 3? And the answer is yes. Here's why. The ACC channel, you are individually certified, right? Unlike other sales logics, for example, when a company gets certified, the ACT Certified Consultant Program is individually based. And to be fair, not all ACCs may want to do this. But the answer to the question is yes. If you're a multi-ACC shop, each individual ACC that wants the ability to resell this must complete all 3 steps. But to be clear, it's not, so I want to reassure you, the test is not, 100-page, all essay, certification, nor is there any cost for it. It's a fairly light exam, so don't be too worried. But yes, to be clear, every ACC that wants to resell Sage Act hosted must complete all 3 steps. There's a question, I guess, Alicia, of Outlook compatibility, or...
Yeah, Outlook is compatible. And then there's also one here that I was trying to answer, but I guess I didn't address directly here, regarding Outlook integration assistance. If an ACT-hosted customer needs assistance integrating their ACT for Web database with Outlook, they would call either you for assistance, okay, first and foremost, or they would contact Sage support for integration with Outlook if they need assistance.
Got a question here about how CCs get paid, and I love these questions because it means you're interested in selling. So here's how it works. If you are on terms with Sage, so you currently have an account with Sage, you will get credited, like a credit to your account for your commission. Also, your tier and co-op, your co-op gets credited to your co-op account, and then your tier goes to your total net amount of the sale goes to your revenue report, so it's reflected in the rankings, and then, of course, that goes toward maintaining your gold or platinum levels. If you're not on terms with Sage, meaning you just pay by credit card, Sage then will we will pay you a check, a hard copy check. Obviously, if no account, there's nothing to debit. So to be clear, if you have an account with Sage, we will credit you your commission, but if you do not have an account with Sage, if it's just credit card only, Sage will send you a check, generally in month 2, depending on the check run, but you'll get paid for the entire year upfront. So in year 2, so that would be month 13th or 14th, we would pay you again via check if you don't have terms. I've got a question of what if an ACC doesn't sell? So there's no, to be clear, ACCs, this was an optional thing for you to offer resell. Certainly this isn't part of the partner program. There's no mandatory manual sell. It's simply our intent to offer you an additional solution to sell, but you don't have to resell this offering. You can continue to sell a Sage Act on-site as you would like. 10 more minutes here.
Okay. There was a question here regarding the Sage Act mobile, and I'd like to address two points to that. One, the ACT-hosted customers will be able to access Sage Act Mobile directly from their hosted web link. It's designed to automatically route a client if they're accessing it through their iPhone, their iPad. It knows to automatically, Act for Web knows to route them to the Act Premium Mobile. It's slick. Customers love it. We've recently upgraded our servers to include that service, and you know what? This is the #1 feature that customers are jumping up and down about. So this is, another reason why Act Hosted in combination with the Act Premium Mobile is just an amazing combination. It's something our customers have been waiting for. They're excited about it, and like I say, they're jumping up and down. They're so excited to have this on their iPads and iPhones.
Awesome. We've got a question here in regards to upgrades. So as we talked about earlier, that the customer on Sage Act Hosted always maintains the latest version of Act. So right now it's 2012. So Alicia, do you want to talk about a high level? So when 2013 comes out, the question is, how is that rolled out or coordinated? Is there a general, I don't actually have the Act 2013 ship date, but is there to give CC some sense of that, when would that happen? So later this year when Act 2013 rolls out, when would iStructure or the ACCs receive the upgrade or be upgraded to the latest version?
Typically, any new customer, so once 2013 comes out, any new customers will be brought on to the current version of the software. Customers that are currently on Act 2012, we typically wait probably, let's say historically, we've been doing this for many, many years, historically we wait about 30 days, at least 30 days, at least so we know that any bugs are worked out of, the upgrade, and then we will go ahead and notify all, the ACCs, then we notify the customers that their databases will be upgraded, and we also provide them with any type of instructions that are required as part of that upgrade, depending on what those might be. So you'll be made aware first and foremost, then the customers, and then we'll perform the upgrade. But you can expect that to start happening about 30 days from the time of the actual Gold launch.
So Alicia, put it another way, like you won't just suddenly upgrade everybody to 2013 without letting the ACC and the customers know first. That sounds like that's the takeaway.
That is correct.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, that's the concerns they're having, which is great. Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. We've got a few more minutes here. I've got some other questions here. I think we addressed the upgrade. As far as inline updates and hot fixes, as those reflect remote users, so if like a service pack comes out, Alicia, say mid-year, how do you generally work on those?
We'll notify, typically that's not going to interrupt the service, which hot fixes typically do not. We'll do those overnight sometime in the middle of the morning. But we typically don't necessarily notify the customer. We just apply hot fixes. They come out few and far between, but we will just apply them. However, we will notify the ACC channel that those have been applied. So you will receive notification. Customers don't necessarily receive notification if we're applying fixes to the program.
Great. I've got a question here that I'll answer. Does the customer have to pay for an upgrade, or is this part of the service agreement? They absolutely do not have to pay separately for an upgrade. The way it works, as long as they're currently on their hosted contract, the example uses $50 per user per month, they automatically receive free upgrades at no cost. As Alicia talked about earlier, generally a month or two after the new version comes out, in concert with the ACC, they'll be upgraded. So no additional kind of upgrade fee is required, which is a huge advantage. More minutes here. Question on HIPAA, Alicia, which I know that's a huge conversation point. I know you'd mentioned you're HIPAA compliant, but there's probably a ton of specifics to that, certainly a little bit more than a webinar. Is that something you'd be okay with addressing with ACCs that perhaps sell into healthcare during your one-on-one?
Well, some of might be selling in healthcare. We can provide any type of at least network documentation that we have. My general understanding of HIPAA is that it's more of a process compliance, and that the network is just a piece of that HIPAA compliance. We do meet the network security compliance piece of that, but HIPAA in general is is something that's going to be applied to their entire organization. So if you have something more specific that you're looking for as far as documentation, we're happy to provide that.
Okay, question here that I think we can both answer. We get this on every one, actually. What is the max number of users? And first of all, we have yet to hit it. That is a great problem. That I will buy the ACC dinner that gives us an account that maxes out iStructure database. You'll win a grand prize. There is no really max user, and we have certainly, Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, you've yet to encounter that. So for all intents and purposes, there is no limit.
That's correct. That is correct. I see one regarding a question. Please answer the question on backups and DR. What is that? I got to back up and see what that is. Okay. I'm trying to find what that is.
Here.
We're doing it for 1 minute. I can't find that, Terry. Oh, I see it.
Or if you just want to talk to it as far as like if you have, what you generally do for
backups. I mean, I don't know what the question is. I mean, backups are, we maintain 14 days of backups. Where is she? How does the customer get access to backups? They can request backups. We do not provide them daily. They can, have an offline client provide them with a complete current copy of their database. If somebody is really concerned about, the security of their data, again, the offline client provides them with a complete copy of their database. regarding disaster recovery, we have an extensive disaster recovery plan. It's certainly not something I can, go through in, in 2 minutes. If it is something that you are really concerned about, we can certainly discuss, our disaster recovery procedures, on our onboarding call.
Okay, well, we're at our time here, and I'll kind of move forward here. I just want to take a moment to thank the ACCs on today's call. We greatly appreciate it. A couple of housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded. We will publish it to you all. The recording, the PowerPoint deck, the questions that came in as well, that will be available probably next week. We'll make it available, so if you came in late or had to kind of leave early, don't worry, you'll get that. And again, I encourage you, going back just a few slides here, if you're ready for step 2, go to the SageU link located there, register for the course certification. Once that's done, Alicia will get a list of those that have passed it, and she'll begin reaching out to you. And don't worry, if you have specific questions, she can cover it in your onboarding call. It's one-on-one. It's not going to be another webinar. It's her talking to you over the phone, answering any specific concerns and comments you have. But as I mentioned earlier, just to close it out, it's a great opportunity for you all. It's an additional revenue source for you. You get all the goodies you expect: margin, tier, co-op, reseller, record, commission, accruals, year 1, year 2, year 3, and all your services, all during a critical time in the world today where cloud has really taken hold and taking traction. The results we've seen internally have been spectacular, much more than we really anticipated, to be honest. And I think the ACCs use a channel, which you have exclusive on this as a retailer channel now, are going to knock the ball out of the park. So register now. Thank you all for attending. We do appreciate it. I know it's a holiday weekend. And with that, we will go and wrap up today's Part 2 Sage Act hosted training webinar. Thank you all again, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.